Welcome to episode 18 of the Maddie's Joy, an Angelman Journey podcast. I am your host, Adam Birchmeyer. On today's episode, we are going to be talking all about Maddie's IEP, some of the good, some of the bad, and what I've learned from the process. So I hope you enjoy. Hey, thanks so much for joining the Maddie's Joy podcast for episode 18, where we are going to talk all about IEPs. Maddie just went through her first ever individualized education plan. Sorry for stumbling on my words there. And it was quite scary for me, honestly. It's the first time that Nicole and I had ever sat through one. Thankfully, it is for Maddie going to preschool. She's actually going to be in a special needs room. Um, and she will be with about 5 or 6 other kids with a varying degree of needs. So we had to sit down and come up with a game plan for what we wanted Maddie's services to look like. So Maddie's going to be receiving speech services, OT services, physical therapy services, as well as we set a goal for her cognitive services as well. And we set goals that we wanted Maddie to achieve. And thankfully, with the help of her early education um, therapist, we were able to transition into the school fairly smoothly. It was a little bit intimidating because when we got to the room, there were, I would say, about 8 or 9 people sitting around the table, um, besides my wife and I. So that was a little intimidating. One thing that I'm glad we did was we actually met with each discipline. So physical therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy. We met with all of Maddie's school therapists beforehand, um, and also got them in touch with Children's Colorado. So they were able to plug in, and then we also gave them the resource of the Angelman Syndrome Foundation website, which has IEP goals built in to the website. So if you haven't checked that out, or if you didn't know that that existed, Amanda Moore, when she was on the podcast, talked about that, and we actually utilized that, or at least our therapist did, to come up with some clear and concise goals. Um, when you're setting an IEP goal, you really want to tailor it towards the child, not towards the child's age. So where the child's ability is. So right now, Maddie's not standing. Um, so to have, say, Maddie to walk, Maddie's not quite there yet. We really want her to start cruising furniture. Um, and you also want to make the goal measurable and achievable. So those are the main components of an IEP goal, what you want to set. And thankfully, with Maddie's therapists, they were able to come into our home and kind of observe Maddie a little bit, before she transitioned into the school system. So I wouldn't say that any of her goals are unrealistic. Um, for OT, we really want her to start using a utensil, or at least trying to use a utensil, so a fork or a spoon to feed herself. Um, if you've ever seen me post pictures of Maddie at dinner time, usually she's just down into her diaper because she gets food everywhere. Um, she does not like mom or dad to feed her. She wants to feed herself, which I think is great. I love the independence that Maddie has. Um, but using a utensil, so like a spoon or a fork, might make things a little less messy. Currently at daycare, she's going through like 3 or 4 outfits a day because she just gets so dirty from lunchtime and breakfast and snacks that she's just burning through outfits. So hopefully that's a goal that she'll be able to achieve. Um, and then with speech, it's all just going to be about mimicking and repetition. So the teacher and the teacher's aides showing Maddie on the iPad what certain words are, and having Maddie hopefully replicate that. For PT, we want to get Maddie standing independently. So currently, she's not getting into standing. She wants to, but she just doesn't have that strength to pull herself up. Um, and then cognitively, we actually set a goal for her to play with a classmate for 5 minutes, which is a great goal. I mentioned earlier with speech, our normal speech therapist, Maddie's attention span was extremely low when we started attending speech. So I think that that's a great goal. With IEPs, they're extremely scary, I think. Um, One, you're sending your child into a new environment, and two, you're not sure what kind of pushback you're going to get from the school district. Now, with an IEP, it is written. It's written down. The school district signs off on it, and the parents sign off on it. Um, and in the IEP, it actually outlines certain that your child's going to receive certain services and the frequency of those services. So Maddie will be receiving physical therapy 4 times a week, occupational therapy, not 4 times a week, but 4 times a month, occupational therapy 4 times a month. Speech therapist will come in and work with Maddie 4 to 8 times a month. But it's important that the frequency of the therapies is in that IEP because that's a legal and binding contract. If you ever if your child ever doesn't receive those services, the first step would be just to contact the school district themselves and try to work it out that way. Um, but if you have a local ARC organization, that's ARC, typically they are really good at working on your behalf to make sure that the school districts are living up to their word. Um, Especially in older children, because if you have an older child that has many needs, these school districts can promise you the world, but delivering those services is a completely different matter. So you want to make sure that your child is receiving the care that the school district has set out and is legally required. Um, One thing that I didn't do during the IEP, which I wish I would have asked about, is actually the school bus. One of the conditions for Maddie to go to school, since she is not ambulatory, um, I'm not sure if I use that word in the right context, but since Maddie's not walking, is for Maddie to either be in a medical stroller or a wheelchair. We're fighting with the insurance company right now to get Maddie's wheelchair approved. But we do have a medical stroller that was actually donated by a local organization here um, called Renew Mobility, which is a great organization. Um, and they actually donated that to us for free, only with the ask that we donate it back to them as soon as we're done using the equipment. So a lot of Maddie's medical equipment that we have, that if she outgrows it, we're actually going to donate to that organization because it helps families that either get a medical device denied by insurance or can't afford um, a medical device necessarily to get those medical devices for free. And just in our case, we're just waiting for that wheelchair to get approved. So it's a great go between because then our insurance won't approve, say, a medical stroller and a wheelchair back to back. So we can kind of we can make do. But one thing that I didn't ask about that I wish that I did was how the school bus worked. Um, the wheelchair and the medical stroller have bus tie downs, but I don't know who's going to be on the bus, how many aides, if there are any aides. So those are little things that I forgot about. So I would recommend sitting down the day before and maybe writing down a few questions. Um, because yeah, I was kind of a deer in in the headlights when I entered into that room. There's so many people. Thankfully, I knew most of them, but trying to keep an eye on Maddie, who was playing, and trying to focus on the IEP, that was a little nerve wracking, especially being in a new situation too. Well, that's really the only thing that I think that I missed. Thankfully, we had a good relationship with Maddie's intervention therapist here in Michigan. They call it Early On. Um, Shout out to Miss Carly. I think every child needs a Miss Carly in her life because she really went above and beyond for Maddie. Um, Started working with Maddie at 8 months old, and unfortunately, here in June 3rd, Maddie turns 3, so she would actually age out of early intervention. So we only have a couple more weeks with Miss Carly, but she really went above and beyond for Maddie, getting her services that typically an early intervention specialist probably wouldn't, but she knew that Maddie needed it, so she could point us in the right direction or get us what we needed. So thank you to Miss Carly. But yeah, I was concerned because the family conference really focused on IEPs, which I think is a great thing. There were 2 breakout sessions, I believe, based on age groups. And I think that IEPs will get more difficult as Maddie gets older. But I'm just glad that this year her IEP was pretty simple. But I'm going to make sure that I hold the school district to account. I have no reason not to believe that they're going to provide the services that they promised, but you never know. So just knowing that I have some resources in my back pocket um, to help me get Maddie the services that she needs. One other great thing is as soon as Maddie's in school, we won't necessarily have to do the outpatient therapies in Grand Rapids. We might do them during the summer, but seeing how how she progresses in the school system, hopefully we can just utilize their therapists. And as much as we love Micah, who is on the podcast, doing those 40-minute drives, missing work, um, hopefully that will become less frequent and we can kind of utilize him in the summer when we need to. But that's all that I have with IEPs. Thankfully, everything went very smoothly. I apologize that there's no surprises. Um, but yeah, I would love to hear from you guys to hear some of the ups and downs that you guys have gone through with IEPs. Um, and yeah, and just things to watch for because I know that I'm new to this and I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and there's things that happen that I need to be prepared for. So if you have any advice, I would love to hear about it. Um, and then May 20th is coming up, so this will post on the 19th. So May 20th is the Angelman Syndrome Foundation Walk. I hope that you all have a great time, unless you had it last week. Um, but yeah, majority of the country, May 20th, Angelman Syndrome Foundation Walk. I can't wait to see all of you families from Michigan. Um, can't wait to hang out with you guys and kind of reconnect. So until next time, have a wonderful